Okay, good evening. David Cashman here, SEB Housing. This is the lottery for the affordable units at Millside at Heritage Park. Let me just, before I go further, I'm just going to type in the box next to where you see me. If anyone has questions during the course of this lottery, unfortunately you can't speak audibly for me to hear, but you can type in that box. So let me just type there. If someone could just confirm that that you can hear me before I go forward. Let's type that out. Hopefully everyone can hear fine. Just waiting for someone to respond here. Confirming you can hear me all right. Just still waiting here. Just want to make sure there's no issues. Someone could just confirm in the dialog box there, that would be great. Okay. Well, no one's confirmed anything, so I'm just going to hope that that the volume's okay, but certainly speak up if there are any issues. Okay, so this is the lottery for the affordable units at Millside at Heritage Park. If you're watching this and you're in the lottery, congrats on getting this far. Let me just give you a little bit of background information about how the lottery is going to go, how the waiting lists get created, and what to expect going forward. So in total, there were 14 households who completed applications and were eligible. And 3 of those 14 households qualified for local preference. We're going to do the lottery drawing, and ultimately from that lottery drawing, I am going to create waiting lists. And those waiting lists will establish an order of priority for moving forward in the next step of this process. And the next step of this process is to contact the leasing office and to apply for a lease and to select from the available units on the list that you're invited to move forward from. So there will be 3 waiting lists in total. And how those waiting lists get populated is in part impacted by the order in which I draw the lottery numbers this evening, but it's also impacted by priorities and preferences that we have to apply, such as for some of the units, there's a local preference attached. So households who qualify for local preference will get priority as contrasted to similarly situated households who do not qualify for local preference. In addition, for the 2-bedroom units, recall that type 2 households get priority over type 1 households. So what all of that means is that as I'm doing the actual drawing, you don't know, and I don't know in that exact moment exactly what that means, because including all households, both households who applied for 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms, there are going to be type 2 households and type 1 households. They're all mixed in. So in real time, as I'm pulling numbers from the box, you don't know and I don't know exactly what that means. But the good news is that within a few hours of the lottery, I will have sorted the results. I will create the waiting list. The waiting list will be ordered top to bottom in order of priority, and that will let you know exactly where you are. So there won't be any ambiguity. You'll get that information soon. When I send that email to you with the waiting list, it will have your lottery application number. That's the number that's in the form of A.blank blank blank. Everyone should have that number. It was sent to you when we told you that you were eligible for the lottery. If you don't have that number, please type in the dialog box your name and I can look it up for you so that you know what you're listening for or looking for. But if you do know your number, you don't need to tell me. I don't need to know it. And so the waiting list will have your lottery application numbers and not your names. And similarly, when I do the drawing here, it'll just be the numbers, nobody's name. So there will be 3 waiting lists. There's going to be a 1-bedroom waiting list that has local priority. That's just 1 unit. Okay, there's just one 1-bedroom unit that has local priority attached. There's 9 applicants, 2 local preference applicants, and 7 who did not qualify for local preference. Then there's also going to be a 1-bedroom waiting list that does not have any local priority. That's 5 units total, and the same 9 applicants. That part is always a little tricky and feels a little, not tricky, it feels a little redundant. It is, but there are 9 applicants in total who applied for 1-bedroom units. They will all be on both lists. Okay, they will all be on both lists. The leasing office will invite first from the local list, fill that 1 unit. Once they do, they will close that list and they will move forward inviting only from the open list. Okay, that has 5 more units. Okay, so they'll fill the 1 local preference unit, close that list, and move on to the other open list to fill the remaining 5 1-bedroom units. And then the last waiting list will be a 2-bedroom waiting list that has local preference. 9 units total, 7 applicants. So we know that all of those applicants will be invited to move forward to the next step in the process since there are more units than there are applicants. 4 of those households are type 2 households, so they will be the top 4 on that list. And 3 are type 1 households, so they'll be below. And I'm still waiting for anyone just to confirm that you can hear me okay. It shouldn't be a problem, but I always like to just check and make sure I'm not talking to myself. So I'll just ask one more time. Definitely appreciate a confirmation. Okay, now, but before we do, so we're going to have to do 2 drawings. We're going to have to do a local preference drawing. There were 3 households who qualified for local preference. Thank you, appreciate it. And we have to do the general drawing, which will actually include every household in the lottery. That's sort of the usual way you go about it when you have a local preference in a lottery. You have 2 drawings, you have just the local preference households, and then you have everyone in a second drawing. In this lottery, we actually have to do a preliminary drawing first because anytime you have a local preference, the number of minorities in the local preference pool must be equal to or greater than the percentage of minorities in the surrounding area. In this case, in the metropolitan statistical area that includes Canton, the percentage of minorities is 27%. There are only 3 households in this lottery who indicated they qualified for local preference. None of them indicated that they were minority, giving a representation of 0%. There were 4 other households who indicated that they were minority, but not local preference. So the very first thing we're going to do is the 4 households who indicated they were minority, but not local preference will be put in the lottery bin. I will pull out 2 of those numbers. Those households will then be added to the local preference pool for a total of 5. The other 2 will be added back to the general pool from where they came. Then we will do a local preference drawing with the 5 local preference households. It's initially 3, it will now be 5. It's not going to take very long. Pull them out one by one. I'll hold the numbers up to the screen so you can see. So we'll do the 5 local preference households. Then we'll add those in with all the other households. I'll draw all 14 numbers out. I'll hold them up so you can see. And that will be it. It'll actually go pretty quickly, okay? And then, as I said before, I will take those results. I will sort them according to the priorities that we have to use. And then I will create the waiting lists and I will send those to you later on tonight. And those waiting lists will be ordered top to bottom with your application number so you know exactly where you stand. If you find your number in green, then you know, yes, I'm definitely moving forward immediately in the next step of the process, which is to apply for a lease with the leasing office. If you're not in green, that simply means that you have to wait to see what happens with the households ahead of you to see if you're going to be invited to move forward. Now, keep in mind, in the usual case, leasing offices have to invite more households to apply than there are units available to fill all of those units. And the reason for that is that the conversion ratio of invites to leases is just not 100%. Okay, it's just not 100% in any of these really developments that we work with. Households, decide they want to live somewhere else, or their life circumstances change, they can't move forward. Maybe they get screened out because they don't meet the lease screening criteria, any number of things that can happen. So if you're not one of the households in green, you should not think automatically, oh, I'm never going to get to move forward in this process. You might. You just have to wait to see what happens with the households ahead of you. And you would still keep your position on the waiting list if you don't get to move forward right away now for future years. Okay, so keep that in mind. By that same token, if you are a household in green, that is not an automatic guarantee that you're going to get a unit, because there is still a whole nother step. So when we send around the results tonight to you, I will give you the leasing office contact information. We will give your information to them so that you can be in touch. You should expect to hear from the leasing office fairly soon with invites and information about moving forward. And you can expect that that invite is going to say something like, you're invited to move forward in the next step of this process, which is to apply for a lease and select from the available units on the list that you're being invited from. And you have to come in within the next week or so, or 5 days. I don't know exactly what time frame they will give you to complete that lease application. So you want to keep your eyes and ears out for that invitation, and you want to respond within the time frame that they give you to respond. If you just blow it off and you never respond, if they call you on a Monday and say, hey, we're inviting you to move forward, please respond within a week, and 3 weeks go by, and then you say, hey, I'm still interested in this unit, you might lose your unit. You might lose your opportunity to move forward. So just as not being in green doesn't necessarily mean you won't get to move forward, being in green doesn't necessarily, guarantee you a unit. There's still other things that have to happen. And one of those big things, keep in mind, is you need to be screened for lease eligibility. If you're in the lottery, that means that we, SED Housing, who's an off-site affordable housing specialist, has deemed you program eligible, right? And that basically means that you're under the program income limits. We look at other things too, but that's kind of the biggest one, right? So we've said you are program eligible. But we're not a management team. We're not a leasing office. We haven't looked at your credit. We haven't looked at your tenant history, landlord references, criminal background check, any of these things that management teams and leasing offices typically look into. So that's a whole second and distinct and separate step that still needs to happen. So, just make sure that you're not, giving your current landlord or whomever notice, hey, I'm in green on the waiting list. I'm moving out. I'm moving into this new place. Maybe you will. That's great if you do. Just don't do it prematurely. You still need to get through that second step. And when you do get invited, you'll be able to choose from any of the available units on the list that you're invited from. So if you're invited from the 1-bedroom list, you can choose from the 1-bedroom units. If you're invited from the 2-bedroom units list, you can choose from the available 2-bedroom units. This is where having a higher waiting list position becomes advantageous, because if you're the number one household on, say, the 2-bedroom list, there are 9 of those units. You'll be able to select from any of the 9, right? Any of the 9. And then the households behind, the next household behind you will be able to select from any of the 8 that remain, and the next from the 7 that remain, and so on and so forth. So that's a real advantage of having a higher waiting list position. I am told by the leasing office that units are expected to be ready in mid-August, and they can obviously give you updates as you move along in this process with them. All right, so I think that's it for me. I've talked long enough. I'm sure you're all ready for me to shut up now and just move forward with the lottery, which is what I'll do. If anyone has a question, I'm just going to hang on for a second, type it in the box. I'll respond. That's okay if you don't. I'll move forward with doing the drawing, and I will hang out for a second once the drawings are done in case households have questions at that time. Okay, so without further ado, as I explained, First step is the preliminary minority household lottery drawing with the 4 households who identified as minority. We're going to be picking 2 of these to add to the local drawing list. Okay, so I put them in, shake it up. I will pull these out and hold them up to the screen. As you can see. Okay. A.001, A.001, and the next one is A.002, A.002. Okay, so those 2 households have effectively just been given local preference status. That's what we just did there. All right, so let me just add those. Take the other 2 out. Put these back in with the general pool. All right, the preliminary drawing is done. And now we will do the local preference drawing. Okay, so there's now 5 households in the local preference pool. Okay. Goes up. Okay, first drawn is A.001, A.001. Next up is A.007, A.007. Next up is A.013, A.013. Next up, A.005, A.005. And then last is A.002, A.002. All right, that was quick. That was the local preference drawing. Those were the 5 households. Now we're going to move on to the general drawing. All right, I'm going to shuffle these up a little bit. We'll put them in my lottery box, give it another little spin, and then I will start pulling these out and holding them up as I have before. Rose, I see your question. Let me just do this drawing and then I will answer you and any other questions that people may have. So just hang tight for me for just a sec, Rose, and I'll get back to you. Okay. All right, let's shake this up. Okay. First up, A.008, A.008. A.007, A.007. A.006, A.006. A.010. And Waleska, I see your question too. Let me just finish drawing these out and then I will answer your question. A.012, A.012. A.001, A.001. A.013. A.013. A.011. A.011. A.009. A.009. A.005. A.005. A.004. A.004. A.014. A.014. A.003. A.003. And then the last one drawn is A.002. A.002. All right, so that's the drawing. Pretty quick. So let me just address these questions. Rose, question is, so there's only so many for subsidy. Well, so none of the units are so affordable units. Yes, I think what you mean is how many, there's 15 affordable units in the development, which has 60 units total. So is that what you mean? Tell me if not, but there's 15 total affordable units. They're not subsidized. If a household has a voucher, they may be able to use that voucher, provided that the issuing authority says that the rents are within what they're willing to pay and there aren't any other issues, which is something that always needs to be confirmed with the housing authority first. But there is no bar or rule against, program rule against households using vouchers for affordable units. And again, the affordable units are broken down into, there are 6 one-bedroom affordable units and 9 affordable 2-bedroom units. Waleska's question, is this for the 1-bedroom units? So when we do the drawing, we include the drawings, plural. First, there was the preliminary minority drawing to add 2 minority households to the local preference drawing. And then we do a local preference drawing and an open drawing. In those drawings, I'm not doing it. There are households who have applied for 1-bedroom units, and there are households who have applied for 2-bedroom units. I then have to, after doing the drawings, sort the results onto the waiting list, and I will look as I'm doing that and figure out which households who have applied for 1-bedroom units and which households have applied for 2-bedroom units, and I will populate those waiting lists accordingly. So Rose, follow-up question, that's what I mean, but if you have a special doctor's request on a specific unit and you're called at the top of the list, you get to choose the unit with the specific the doctor requests for you. So I think I understand what you're saying, Rose. If you need a specific unit to, as a reasonable accommodation or something in that nature, I mean, a reasonable accommodation can't guarantee you a specific unit. It can't elevate you above other households on the waiting list. Households with higher positions on the waiting list still need to be given choice because that's how these waiting lists work. Hopefully the unit or units that would work for you will be available to you when your position on the waiting list is called. If that's not the case, there may be some opportunity for the development team to swap in a market rate unit and do a switch. If there is a market rate unit that would accommodate your needs, that is something that would have to be worked out with them at the relevant time. But to kind of backtrack here for a second, there can't be a specific unit for you or anyone else can't be sort of set aside as we're going to reserve this unit for X person because it meets such and such need, we still have to honor the positions that households have on the waiting list and sort of hope that they don't end up, in your case, hope that they don't reserve the unit that you would hope to reserve. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? Any other questions? And again, I will send around the waiting list in a few hours here, so check your emails. I think everyone in the lottery provided an email address. So if you're interested in seeing where you are on the waiting list, make sure to check your email this evening. Rose, yep, I see your question. You're saying sort of as a disability, answer stays the same, whether it's a reasonable, usually reasonable accommodations are for a disability, but the answer is the same. There can't be a specific unit set aside. You may have a very high waiting list position, so that's a possibility too. Maybe you just get a very early choice and you can just take the unit you want. So that's a possibility too. Waleska, is the minority and locals preference given priority on the wait list? All right, so there is some preference for local households for some of the units. Okay, for one bedroom unit, there is a priority for local preference households, and for all 9 2-bedroom units, there is preference for local preference households. There's no minority preference, but we added 2 minority households to the local preference pool and effectively gave them local preference. So there are 2 minority households who've been given local preference. So in total, there are 10 units for which households who have local preference will get a priority. But don't forget, on the 2-bedroom waiting lists, independent of local preference, type 2 households, those are larger households who need 2-bedroom units, will get priority over type 1 household. Doesn't matter local preference or not. So household type is a more powerful or important, for lack of a better word, priority category than is local preference for the 2-bedroom unit. Any other questions? Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Congrats again on getting this far. Hopefully it works out for you moving forward. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us, but just sort of know that going forward, you're kind of done with us. You've done your screening, we've deemed you program eligible, and so really your main point of contact moving forward is going to be with the leasing office. As I said before, we will be giving you their contact information. We'll give your contact information to them, and the next step in this process is going to be being in touch with them and applying for a lease, and they'll let you know when it is your turn, if and when it is your turn to do that. So thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a great night, and take care. Bye-bye.